Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'een. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna 'ilman wa 'amalan mutaqabbalan ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta ya hayyu ya qayyum taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahlan sahla. La ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka Allahumma wa natubu ilayk. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to lesson number 3 of Al-Muqaddimaat of Imam al-Sanusi rahimahullah ta'ala, the preliminary discussions, the precursors to studying Aqidah in general, and we hope you're benefiting from these classes inshaAllah ta'ala. We'll move into the next part of the text, which is where we left off. But just before that, we'll just summarize kind of what we talked about last time, which was the hukam al-adi and hukam al-aqli. And we said that the hukam al-adi, which is the customary judgment, the way we connect things in life, is based upon repetition and connecting one act, such a cause as we call it, which is as fire, to a result such as burning. And we said that this is done by repetition, by cognizance of the relationship between two things, and then we make a extrapolation, a judgment that every time we have fire we'll get burning, we'll have fire we get burning. We mentioned there are a few different schools of thought. One that believes this is an absolute must, is the connection is actually rational like other things and it can't ever break up. That is kufr. It will lead to kufr, if not kufr itself. The second one was that the cause has an effect by power deposited within it, which was a belief held by the Mu'tazilites, which is innovation and misguidance. And then we have the way of the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the correct way, which is that this is a outward connection, that we see a cause and an effect, that there's no effect of one in the other like the definition said, and it may not occur because everything happens by the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which the Mu'tazilites agree with, but what they say is that the creation occurs by the power that Allah has deposited. So we don't call them disbelievers because they added this extra power, this qudra haditha, this contingent power or ability to do things that they then ascribe to humans and beings. We say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, there's no power no might except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that does everything for us. And then we categorize this and we broke this down into how a cause and effect can combine. So if you eat you get satiated, if you don't eat you don't get satiated, if you don't eat you'll have hunger. It's just logical deductions of or outcomes of this. And then we moved on to the rational judgment. The rational judgment, the intellectual judgment, the logical conclusion to things, which is mathematics we mentioned and statements that make just common sense, or can be irrational and a lack of cohesion, and that things like square circle, things that don't make sense at all, are actually totally wrong, and we shouldn't believe in them, or we can't believe in them. We just be crazy to be so, to do so, right? To believe that an object can be moving and still at the same time. To believe that an object cannot be in a place, it has to be in a place and a time. Tahayyuz lil jirm, these were some of the examples that were given. And then we stopped on this part here, and there's possibilities as well, so inconceivable things and possible things, such as us being here in a particular time, space, or movement for a human being, or stillness. These are possibilities, one at a time. And then we stopped at the madhab of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and this is where we will carry on from inshallah ta'ala. So today's class is going to be about predestination, I suppose, right? About our acts and how we look at them and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined with that, and how that relates. And then it moves on to the accountability. So how are we accountable based on our understanding of our actions being creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the idea of kasb, acquisition of actions, of being responsible, of acquiring good or bad deeds. So we're going to talk about that as well today, inshallah ta'ala. So if we move into the Arabic, we're going to read the Arabic just for the blessings, inshallah. So you should have this PowerPoint in front of you. If you don't, or it's finished because we're coming to the end of what was sent to you, part 1, then we'll continue to part 2. We'll send that to you later, just in case those of you wondering that where's the remainder of the PDF. It'll be coming soon, inshaAllah ta'ala. So it says now, at this point where it says, وَالْمَذَاهِبُ مِنْ فِي الْأَفْعَالِ ثَلَاثَةٌ, right? The schools of thought, the opinions regarding human actions are 3. مذهب الجبرية, مذهب القدرية, ومذهب أهل السنة. Right? They are the madhab of the determinists. So if we look at the translation, it doesn't translate them, but the madhab of the Jabriyah, of the Qadariyah, and the Ahl Sunnah. We'll explain what they mean. They're the titles given because Jabr means compulsion, it means force, it means you don't have a choice in something, right? And the word Qadariyah, that's used to refer to when someone's forced. The Qadr is what is there, the choice is there, sorry. So the Qadariyah he refers to when you have a Qadr, you have a power yourself alongside the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Ahl Sunnah is obviously the correct understanding of what we believe. So it says فَمَذْهَبُ الْجَبْرِيَّةِ وجود الأفعال كلها بالقدرة الأزلية فقط من غير مقارنة لقدرة حادثة. We'll translate that shortly. ومذهب القدرية وجود الأفعال الاختيارية بالقدرة الحادثة فقط مباشرة أو تولدا. It says ومذهب أهل السنة وجود الأفعال كلها بالقدرة الأزلية فقط مع مقارنة الأفعال الاختيارية لقدرة حادثة لا تأثير لها ولا مباشرة ولا تولدا. Okay, so this is explaining all 3 madhahib, which translates as follows. As for the Jabariya or the Jabriya, the occurrence of all actions is by a predetermined power only, without any connection to a contingent power. So they don't believe that. So they believe so first of all, our actions, human actions and actions of everything really, are either by choice, we have a choice, a decision to make, or by compulsion, or by just, they're just not part of something we can control. So we're forced to do things in life, we just don't have control, we're coerced, right now we're in limited time and space, we can't fly, we can't, our bowels, we don't control our bowels, right? Things like this. These are actions or, things we do, af'al, that are not within our choice. They're called af'al ittirariya, the necessity, the ones that are necessitated by us being humans. That happens. Then there's af'al ikhtiyariya, actions that are done by choice. Okay, so we have a choice to make. Are we going to eat or not eat? Are we going to sit or stand and do these kind of things? So we have a choice in actions. So we have 2 categories of actions. What the Jabriya did, the first group, they said that our ittirariya actions, our actions by necessity, and our actions by choice, our actions which are, decision making, yes, no, stand, sit, eat, go out, stay in, speak, don't speak, are also connected to, and only connected to, I should say, the power of Allah. Qudra azaliyah here means the pre-eternal power, i.e. the power of Allah, of God, as it says in the translation. The occurrence of all actions by the pre-eternal power of Allah only, predetermined power. The Qudra al-Azaliyah is here the omnipotence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any connection to a contingent power. So they don't bring in the equation of anything else. So there's no human role to play, which basically makes us, as many scholars have said, like a feather in the wind, right? There's wherever the wind blows, we take like a branch that's being blown about or moved about. It's no control, no decision making, no will for the human being. There's no will. These are the determinists, the ones that say, look, khalas, it's all decreed, it's all fixed, you can't have a choice, it's all forced upon you. And Jabr means force, compulsion here, right? So they became known as the Jabriya. There's a group of them. They were quite well known in the early days of Islam. They had this opinion, and what that resulted in more so is actually this laid back attitude, this kind of, it's all decreed, it's all determined, I'm forced to do what I want, what's the point? Yeah, everything's forced, right? So it's incorrect. It's innovation in beliefs, and it's the madhab of the Jabriya. We don't agree with that. We'll explain how we believe in things when we get to the final madhab, inshallah ta'ala. The second madhab, as you can see this, as for the Qadariyya, the occurrence of voluntary acts. So the Ittirariya, we all agree, everyone agrees. So just go back to a point. Everyone agrees things that are by necessity. You don't have a control, you don't have a choice. There's no accountability for those actions as well. and they're just part of human nature. We just can't avoid them, right? There may be an accountability for some things, right? But just for now, let's just separate them out and say ittirariya, no accountability, no choice in them. That's why they call it ittirariya, by necessity. So that is only the power of Allah that makes that happen. We don't choose it to happen. We don't want it to happen. Even it just happens, right? We may want it, we may not want it. It depends, right? It's all by Allah's power and control. He gives us life right now. We're not giving ourselves life, right? That's a necessity. That's all Allah's command. Once He takes away life from us, that's death, right? Of course, there's something called killing, murder, right? Harming. That comes under choice, right? And we are accountable for those, as you can see. But anyway, coming back to this, the occurrence of voluntary actions. So the Mu'tazilites, the Qadariyah they're known as, the Mu'tazilites as well, are the ones that predominantly had this belief, or a large portion of them. They say voluntary actions, so qudra, so the actions by necessity are done. They're by the power of Allah. Okay, what about our actions we do by choice? What do you believe about this, or Mu'tazilites, or people of this belief? They said that the voluntary actions are by a contingent power. Like the power of Allah is not directly involved, okay? It's only by our created power given to us by Allah. So similar to, you see how we go to the customary ruling, and you see how they believed in a almost power deposited. Similar concept now. They believe in a power deposited within a human, by which he or she does his or her actions, and he or she is accountable for. So they believe in accountability, and is done by this power that's being given to us, inserted in us, deposited. Okay? And therefore, Allah is not the one who creates directly. He's the one that allows creation, or facilitates creation through these powers given to things. Okay? So He doesn't create evil. They got away from that problem. So the Mu'tazilites, this is how they got away from the problem of, does God create evil or not? No, God gives you the power. And if you choose to create evil, that's your choice. You're accountable. Right? But God didn't create evil. We can't attribute evil to God at all, according to the Mu'tazilites. And they fled from that belief. Which is similar, not exactly the same, but you'll find maybe in Christian theology a similar kind of concept as well. So there's some taking from the Christian tradition maybe, or kind of assimilating with that. So that's their belief, that's their understanding. Deposited powers makes you accountable, and Allah can withdraw the power. So if He actually wants to stop a calamity occurring, or a good occurring, or a bad thing occurring, He pulls away the power. So He's in control, but via a means, which makes Him in need of a means, which is not how Allah works. We don't believe that. We believe in the third category, or the third understanding here, which is, as for the Ahlul Sunnah, the occurrence of all actions is by the pre-eternal power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over things, no one else. Okay? And the occurrence of all actions is by the pre-eternal power of Allah only. So something comes into existence by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing else. Contingent voluntary actions are opposed to a contingent power. Opposed here with the A, opposed means aligned with. They come together with a contingent power. So when we do an action, we don't create it, that's wrong. When we do an action, this is side by side the power of Allah, a contingent power. But this contingent power that the Mu'tazilites also said, what do we say about it? We say, look, that has no effect. So this contingent power that comes with it has no effect on the action, on the result, on what is being done. Neither directly, so we're not directly doing that, or by secondary production, by secondary effect, meaning, so directly you could, that's it, you put something down there, right? But by secondary effect, you could, heat something up, and that heat could transfer, and then, you've done something else via the means, secondary effects, right? It's basically stages of how things are done. No, our power didn't start off a mechanism or a chain of events that resulted in something else. There's a power that's there, and we are responsible for, we have, and the next section is going to explain that. But that's just a power that we have, or what is called a qudra, an ability, if you like, we have. Say power might infer action, but let's say ability, which infers ability to do things, that then isn't effective. It's not an agent, right? And this is a very, very important concept which we did last time, and I'm going to mention it again. لا تأثير للأسباب, right? There is no ta'thir for asbab. There's no effect on causes. yeah, نفي التأثير واجب. نفي التأثير يعني الأسباب, negating the effects, an actual an outcome, creation coming from asbab, causes, like your muscles and your arms and the fire and things, is a wajib here. When I say wajib, is actually aqlan and shar'an, like both by rational and by our sharia. We have to negate that anything has an effect. It's only Allah. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. ما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى. You did not throw when you threw, it was Allah. Right? So Allah creates every single action at the time it was to be created, with all things, as we're going to learn, being a part of that. But then we have to say وَالْأَخْذُ بِالْأَسْبَابِ واجب. But to take the means to attain to what is the outward cause, if you like, to attain the effects, so food to nourishment, medicine to cure, and these kind of things, al-akhdhu bil asbab is also wajib. We can't abandon that. And the first one was wajib aqlan wa shar'an, meaning kufr if you do go against it, right? More or less. And the second one is wajib in terms of action, so therefore it's sinful, is fisq, is transgression and wrong if you leave the asbab. I'm not going to work, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to work, help do things, and things will happen. I'll just stay at home, and everything will happen by itself. The Jabariyah, right? So it's a very dangerous belief. It's actually a belief that you think that you don't have to take asbab. It's a sinful belief, right? It's fisq. Like to think that you don't have to do anything because there's no effect in things. Why do I have to take the asbab? Because the command is to take the asbab, which is action, and the command is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the one who creates. Belief. That's my belief, these are my actions. And the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, they combined this. And he said that there's many hadith like this, which moves on to our next section, where the Prophet ﷺ asked, is everything decreed and finished? Mufarragh, it's faragh, it's all done. Mufarraghan anhu. Or is it shay'an fa shay'an? Is it happening now as we do it? Like, is it not previously been decreed? The Prophet said, qad furigha minhu. It's all been finished, it's done. Allah knows, Allah's decreed. What is there left, right? So what do we do then? So what do we say then on this point? The Prophet ﷺ said, it's all been done, right? But remember that you have to act in accordance with Allah's commands. وَكُلٌّ مُيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ. Everyone is facilitated, will go and do what he is created for. In other words, you've got to keep acting. You have to go and act. And every time you i'malu, so the Prophet said act, take the asbab, the famous hadith, tie your camel, then trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although we believe it's all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although this is our faith, the same faith teaches us, the same teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah also tell us to take the asbab at the same time and have this balance, right? Hopefully you've grasped this concept, inshallah ta'ala. Looking there again, it says, just to go over that, as for the Jabariyah, the occurrence of all actions is by all actions, right? By choice or that are necessity. It's all by a predetermined power only, which is Allah's power, without any connection to a contingent power. There's no connection even. As for the Qadariyah, the occurrence of voluntary actions by a contingent power only. The power of Allah is only there to create the power for you, and then your power does the action, and the power of Allah is now, almost redundant, almost, right? It's not a correct belief either. So either that can be directly or by production or by secondary effect, same as secondary effect, either directly or things kind of ensue from this power, right? As for the Ahlul Sunnah, the occurrence of all actions is by the pre-eternal power of God only. So Allah only creates. However, contingent voluntary actions are opposed or in line with, come together with a contingent power created in us. We have this ability, this qudra haditha, this istita'a, as Imam Tahawi mentions, the Aqidah Tahawiyah, and it's part of our kasb, as we're going to learn next. That has no effect, but it's there. So you feel the strength in your body. You've got your hands, you've got your muscles, right? You've got your health, and some of you haven't, so we'd make dua for you and we ask Allah to grant you relief. But this is what we're talking about. You've got that ability, that strength, that power almost. But does it create? No. Am I not making it? No, Allah's doing it. But I feel like I'm doing it. Yes, this is your qudra haditha, your contingent power which is in line with that. So it feels very much so that we're doing everything, and that's how life feels. But we believe that Allah is the ultimate creator of everything. وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah created you and what you do and what you are doing, right? Everything you do, in other words, and what you will do. So we don't believe in the effect of this power, but it's been given to us, and we're going to talk about why in a moment. And neither directly does it have any power, nor by secondary effect. Like it doesn't directly affect things, nor is it a part of a process that is needed to produce an action. It's just totally separate and just aligned with, like almost to the side of, opposed to. And then we move on to the concept of acquisition, right? So this is an important concept of kasb, a very, very important concept of kasb. So it says, وَأَمَّا الْكَسْبُ فَهُوَ عِبَارَةٌ عن تعلق القدرة الحادثة بالمقدور في محلها من غير تأثير. Just one sentence there, and then it moves on to the types of shirk. So what does that mean? It means the concept of acquisition of actions, of acquiring actions, good or bad, is the connection. This concept is the connection of a contingent power, qudra haditha, with an ordained matter, with the maqdur, so something in the ability of a person. Fi mahalliha. Mahalliha here means at its occurrence, or what is suitable for you. So we don't ask you to fly, for instance. That's not in its place, right? So it's at its occurrence with no effect, bila ta'thir. Okay, so whatever's in your ability to do, whatever you can do, you have the choice to do that. Your kasb is this, right? And this follows on from the previous three madhabs, right? So this concept of kasb is from the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah by Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, Imam Tahawi. Imam Tahawi mentions it as istita'a in his Aqidah Tahawiyah. Imam al-Ash'ari mentions it as kasbun, which is the word used here in his books. Imam Abu Muhammad al-Maturidi, rahmatullah alayhi, Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, rahmatullah, mentions it as well in his works. Istita'a, kasb, al-Qudra al-Haditha, as mentioned here as well, which is not effective. It's not an agent in the action, but it is coupled with the action. So when you throw something, when you do something like this, they are your acquired actions, right? Through this ability. So it's an ability of having the faculty, the means, the health, the tools, which means the bodily parts, and the aql, intellect, to acquire actions. But it is not created by you. It doesn't create the action, it acquires the action. So Allah creates the action while you're acquiring it, right? So it's two things happening. One is the power of Allah creating, and the second is you taking responsibility by acquiring the action, because Allah gave you that choice. Allah gave you the kasb to take, what you're going to do with this or not. And it's important because when we say it's kasb is acquisition, is not for Allah. Allah doesn't acquire actions. Allah creates actions. So qudra haditha, right? We say it's the connection of a contingent power. So saying contingent means no power of Allah is involved. It's only the power of the slave, which is a contingent power, which is, as you can see, connected, not effective, right? When we say with an ordained matter at its occurrence, we mean where the mahalli hayani, the mahal of power, where the power should be of actions. What's that? Throwing, sitting, standing, right? Things that we can't do are not from within our power, right? We can't actually bring about things. We can only do which is the choice really we can make. That's our power to make that choice. The actual creation of an action is not within our power. So this statement is like just to say, look, you're doing things and that's your place to do them, but the actual creation of them is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's action, right? And by saying at the end there of the definition, no effect occurs, what we're saying is that we take ourselves, and this is where we can compare the first madhab, if you like, where we said the Jabriya, they said there's no power from a creation, right? You've gone to that side of it, that is an extreme. We said there's no effect of the action, of the power in the action, but there is a power. So it's done by this, right? Or you could say we're going away from the Mu'tazilites as well, because they've said the power has an effect. We're saying it has no effect, Okay, but we're differing from the Jabriya by saying there's a connection to a power. They're saying there's no connection to any power. There's nothing. It's Allah's power. So we're having this balance between these two extremes by saying there's a connection, not a connection of effect, a connection of being happening side by side, which is where our responsibility and acquisition of actions comes from. So there's no creation from us. There is what we call kasb. The word is kasb, right? There is acquisition from us. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lamu bis-sawab. Now, so that's the talk on the three madhabs on human actions and the concept of acquisition of actions as well. And there's more details to this in the books of Aqidah. We're just giving you a basic introduction to these topics. One thing I just want to remind everyone here, that these discussions are not full-blown Aqidah discussions that are being mentioned. It's literally a one line we're reading through that I've added commentary to, but really just it's a matter. The purpose of the book is to memorize that, to know that, understand that, and that's it. Okay, tomorrow when we study books of Aqidah and we go through these discussions, as soon as you hear the word kasb, you've got the definition in your mind. I know what kasb is. It's that. It's تعلق القدر الحادثة بالمقدور في محلها مع مقارنة بلا تأثير. Sorry, مقارنة is in the previous one, right? بلا تأثير, right? That's what we've got to remember. Or in English, kasb is the connection of a contingent power with المقدور, the thing that occurs, the matter, في محلها, in the way it should be connected with it, بلا تأثير, right? With no effect, right? That's kasb. Okay, that's what I do, that's what we do, that's what humans do in af'al al-ikhtiyariyah, in what we have a choice of, right? In af'al al-tirariyah, where it's by necessity, that's not in our maqdur, so it doesn't fit in the definition. It's not in our ability to do, so it's not in the definition of kasb, right? So these definitions, they take out anything that shouldn't be a part of this understanding, and they leave in the definition exactly what should be understood to be acquisition or kasb of actions, right? So this is, and similarly, as we've been going through these definitions, what is a hukm aqli, what is a hukm shar'i, what is a hukm adi. In English, if the definition is not, if you want to learn them Arabic, for those of you who are studying Arabic and want to delve further into the sciences in the future, I would highly recommend the Arabic as well. But for instance, we said for the hukm shari is khitabullah ta'ala al-muta'alliqu bi af'al al-mukallafina ijaban wa ibahatan or wad'i lahuma, right? So that's what we said it is the addressing of Allah, or the directive of Allah speaking to the those who are responsible in terms of their actions, bil talabi, or I said ijab or talab, requesting, or ibaha, permitting, or wad'i lahuma, or things that set up, things which are prohibited or requested or allowed, right? That's the definition, and we went through some other things, and that's sul fiqh, but at least you know now what a hukm shar'i is. They're all based on this concept. Hukm adi, it's rabtu amrin bi amrin, connecting one affair to another. Wujudan or adaman, whether things that exist or things that don't happen. بواسطة التكرار, by the medium of, by way of repetition. من غير تأثير أحدهما مع صحة التخلف, while this not occurring, while this robbed, this connection failing sometimes, right? Not occurring sometimes. من غير تأثير أحدهما في الآخر البتة, without one of them affecting the other at all. There's no effect of one and the other at all. This is the hukm adi, fire burning, right? We talked about this. So this again hukm aqli. The hukm aqli is ithbatu amrin to establish an affair for another affair, or nafyu, or to negate it, without relying upon a shara', or without relying upon ikhtiyar, but just on the aql, just on rational thought, right? And it can be either wajib, which is what must be existent. It's either mustahil, which is cannot be existent, it's mustahil. What we said today, what the mind cannot perceive of its existence, it can't exist in reality. The mind can perceive of the concept as a concept, but not of the existence of it in reality. Square, circle, the words register, but there's no concept, no reality that can be even imagined in the head actually, or come into reality. Whereas a orange crow is a possibility. It's not mustahil, it's not inconceivable. We've never seen an orange crow, I don't know if you have, but logically it's a possibility, right? And that's the third category, what can occur or not occur, like orange crow, or the sky could have been brown, I don't know, could have been maroon, but it's not, it's blue, right? Clouds are white, right? And so forth, the possibilities of things, right? So we need to memorize and keep in our minds the definitions of what we're talking about and categorizations. So 3 madhabs in actions, Jabriya, Qadriya, Ahl Sunnah, and understand them as well, and the concept of kasb, inshallah ta'ala. So we now have, alhamdulillah, a next section, which we'll go to in the Arabic, inshallah, which is on the types of shirk, right? So what is shirk and the types of shirk, inshallah ta'ala. So in the PDF it says, وَأَنْوَاعُ الشِّرْكِ سِتَّةٌ. The types of shirk, the categories of shirk are 6. شرك استقلال وهو إثبات إلهين مستقلين كشرك المجوس، وشرك تبعيض هو تركيب الإله من آلهة كشرك النصارى، وشرك تقريب وهو عبادة غير الله تعالى ليقرب إلى الله زلفى كشرك المتقدم الجاهلية، وشرك تقليد وهو عبادة غير الله تعالى تبعا للغير كشرك متأخر الجاهلية، وشرك الأسباب وهو إسناد التأثير للأسباب العادية كشرك الفلاسفة والطبائعيين ومن تبعهم على ذلك، وشرك الأغراض وهو العمل لغير الله تعالى, and that is 6, right? أنواع الشرك 6. Right, let's go through them and explain the rulings come after. The categories of polytheism are 6. Okay, polytheism of istiqlal, which means independence or individuality, and it says this is the establishment of 2 gods, both being independent of each other. This is like the polytheism of the Magians or the Majus, right? So Imam al-Sanusi rahmatullahi now goes into explaining the shirk. It's a concept in Aqidah, Tawheed and shirk. So let's talk about the shirk. What is shirk, right? And what is Tawheed? Obviously, indicating shirk would be Tawheed, monotheism, and polytheism, right? So polytheism is shirk. So what are the types of polytheism and shirk? So polytheism is to associate a partner, co-equal, somebody who has a likeness of Allah or resembles Allah or has a share of the dominion with Allah, any form of sharing. Shirk means a partner, or it means to share, have a share. Sharik is the partner, right? So any form of this would be a level of shirk. Okay, there's different levels and categories. Let's go through them. It says وَأَمَّا الْمَجُوسِ. So as for the first one, it's the Majus, right? That's the last word they mentioned, the shirk al-Majus, right? So what they did was, and this is a problem for some as well today, they basically split. So the Majus, not all the Majus, so the Magians, if you look this word up, or the Majus, obviously is a specific term in the Quran and in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, referring to probably the people that followed Zoroastrians, right? This person who said to be a prophet, etc. Allah Alam, we don't know his full details. And they had different types of worship and understanding. Some say they were monotheists as well. Later on, some of their priests and leaders became known as Magians, and they had certain beliefs, and among their beliefs became polytheism, became fire worship. Not all of them. So the Magians may not be. I think they also called is it called Mazduism or something like this? I've come across a different word for them as well. So Zoroastrians, Magians, Mazduists or something like this. So they mentioned, mainly they mentioned for worshipping the fire. That's one of the main things they do. And Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi is somebody whose family was Majus, right? And he fled from the fire worship and eventually became a Muslim and followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina al-Munawwara. So he's an example of, he wasn't a Majus, he fled from them, he didn't agree with it from the beginning, and he found his way to Christianity first and monks, and who he followed, and then later they guided him to the Prophet ﷺ. Long story, famous story of Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi. So the Farisi means Persian, so the Persians had this kind of belief, most of them. So basically they wanted to split, why does bad occur and why does good occur? So they said there's got to be a God of good and a God of bad. There's got to be a different reason for someone wanting good, different reason for someone wanting bad. So they started to build this idea of 2 gods. One was called the god of good, which was Ahraman, was the God of good, right? This is something I think I read or studied when we were doing Aqidah Tahawiyah. It talks about it there as well in terms of Tawheed and stuff. And there's another God who just all the evil, according to their belief, so he's shirk and haram and kufr. And this God of evil is called Yazdan, right? Ahraman and Yazdan. These are Persian words and they mean the God of good, Ahraman, and the God of evil, Yazdan. Okay, Wallahu Alam. Something says to me the other way around, but that's what I remember. That's what said here in the book in front of me. Ahraman and Yazdan. Something saying Yazdan is the good and Ahraman is the bad. But either way, one was good and one was bad. You could probably Google it and find out. But the notes I have in front of me says Ahraman was for the good and Yazdan was for the bad. But Yazdan sounds like a good thing, so that's why I'm just saying it as well. It feels like the Yazdan is the good. But just me feeling that, right? Maybe I'm just feeling it. But nevertheless, they started to have this belief and they built into their understanding of life and this creation and why we're here, and they became believers in duality, right? So dual gods, that's what happened, right? So anyway, the next category or the next form of shirk is that of the Christians. It says, right? It says polytheism of division. This is the concept of God being composed from many gods, like the polytheism of the Trinitarian Christians, right? So they were destroyed by thinking that God reincarnates and is made up of parts, and they made this tarkib, they made this composition to God Almighty, and they said by one way he's God on the earth or human, he's manifesting himself in a human, and then the other way he's God in the heavens, right? Or and then he's like God in the spirit, right? So Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or whatever it is, right? And they developed a whole. The concept of Trinity is much deeper than that, and they go into it in very lot of detail. I wouldn't recommend going into it. If you do want to know about the Trinity or know why the Trinity isn't false, just try and make 3 equal 1, right? And this was a problem for the church, and this is why the church always failed in Europe. To give you a bit of context history, and why science could never get along with Christianity and the church and the legislation. So eventually, it had to oust religion, and so religion became separate from the state, and then science came in, and democracy and all these new ideologies and isms, and it was all a kind of a fight against the church and beliefs, and initially the fight was won by the church, right? In the sense they would burn alive scientists and and do things to people who were trying to ever suggest something contrary to their beliefs or the Bible and so forth. But that's because they had a mistake. They were following misguidance, right? They were misguided, and unfortunately that resulted in this big clash of the church and what was modern thought, or the developing enlightenment and the thought of the philosophers, and that developed slowly. Time changes, then all of a sudden the religion was lost, and it was more like the mind and philosophers, and that became a big thing. And then that actually went away, and the philosophers predicted that it would, and it all became about the self, and not just not about everybody else, and that's what it is now. It's all this selfishness and all this lack of concern for others. And this is but the Prophet said there'll be athara at the end of time. Nobody will be concerned by anybody else apart from themselves, and we saw that recently as well, and we see all the time. This is what the whole education system, the whole philosophy, the whole several centuries prior to where we are has developed in this part of the world we live in, which is UK for those of you watching, and the West, let's say, right, the European countries and the West, like Americas and stuff. They've this all the development, the ideologies we have today, the world views we have today, what we're thinking and how we believe and what we go about doing in our lives is based on a thought process, education process. It's all based on these several hundred years of philosophers, studies, opinions, enlightenment, research, empirical data, scientism, naturalists, evolution comes into that, right? And all these things, right? All these philosophies that came forward, philosophy of knowledge. What is knowledge? How do you acquire knowledge? Can we be certain about knowledge? Read people like David Hume and these people, and you think what's going on? No, that's not our tradition as Muslims. It's not the tradition of the Chinese. They've got a totally different tradition, right? We just don't know about it. We don't read about it, or most of us, right? Myself included. But everyone has got their tradition. Our tradition right now is this. is Islam, is the Quran, is the Hadith, is what ulama took out of, so they looked at all the other things going on. They had this, they themselves had thought, and the Sahaba had thoughts and ideas themselves, and they were obviously in line with and regulated by the Quran and Sunnah. Okay, so we can have thought and derivations and understandings, but as long as they are regulated and within the confines of the Quran and Sunnah. And this is what actually didn't happen as well. We get deviance, Mu'tazilites, Jabriyah, and then you get the orthodox. You also get kufr and iman, right? So this now is a level of kufr where people are not part of or do not fit into our limits of Sharia and what we believe and what our discourse is and our whole philosophy is of education of life. And I mentioned this at the beginning. We don't learn to make a living or to just have food on the table. That's not what learning is about. Learning is to culture one's soul, or to cultivate one's soul, to to develop character and to develop substance and to get yourself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be a person of learning, of ability, of discernment, have that deep reflection and deep thought, and hopefully reach a level of intellectualism and so forth. And you might not get very far, but at least you're trying, you're on the journey. You might get very far. Right? It's all about you on the right path, not on the philosophical path, because intellectualism in philosophy is there. I'm talking about Islamic intellectualism. And you need to develop this slowly. It's a lifetime of study, a lifetime of reading, a lifetime of research, a lifetime of reading and interaction and questions, inshallah ta'ala. So moving on to the third category, which is polytheism of gaining proximity. This is the worship of other than Allah to get close to Allah. Those in the early phase of Jahiliyyah carried these beliefs. Okay, so Jahiliyyah started. The whole concept of Jahiliyyah started, or one of the concepts in Jahiliyyah is shirk, right, or is idol worship, and that all started from a person called Amr ibn Luhay, who went around the world, and I think he went to the European side of things, and he saw them worshipping idols, metal objects, wooden objects, idols, right, physical objects, and he decided that that's a good idea. These objects will convince Allah, these worshipping them is a good thing, right? It'll give us a purpose in life. It'll give us something to connect to, and that will help us with God Almighty, right? So they made the idols a medium between themselves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which made them closer to Allah if they used that. And the shaitan obviously played a part in that, of course, right? He wants people to do shirk, and others in their beliefs developed in Jahiliyyah and other times as well. I suppose this is not just limited to Jahiliyyah, but Jahiliyyah was of this nature as well. Took the angels. They said the angels are special creations of Allah, let's worship them. And others decided to worship the sun. So look, the sun's a great creation of Allah. And others the moon, and others the stars. And we talked about fire worship and the Majus, the fire as well. These kind of things. Waliyadu billah, right? We can't ever accept that or believe in that. But that's how they thought you worship God, and that's how they thought you do the right thing, which is bad adab, really, or it's bad adab, it's kufr, right? It's really, really wrong to do that, right? And they unfortunately fell into this shirk, right? This shirk of thinking you can get close to Allah by worshipping other things, right? And had they just had a little bit of reflection, they would have realized that the whole world and the creation, and it goes back to the asbab, nothing occurs except by the power of Allah. Nobody has any power to help you or to not help you or to harm you, except if Allah wills. There's still cause and effect. We can't negate cause and effect, but it's only Allah that makes it happen. So I only worship one God, the one who's in control of everything, right? So nobody can help me except if Allah allows that to happen, yes. Nobody can harm me except Allah allows that harm to occur, yes. Okay, I worship that one, the one who's in control of everything. Right, he's not there or there. I'm just saying I worship that one, the one who is in full control. I don't worship the ones that have no power and no control. Exactly. But remember, we don't negate the asbab, but Allah asked you to eat food. Oh yeah, it doesn't have an effect, but I've got to eat because that's how I get strength, because Allah wants me to get strength through that means. He's going to give me the strength and create it. Oh, I've got to worship because Allah wants me to worship Him in this way, in that way. I've got to make du'as even though it's only the power of Allah, because He wants me to make du'a. He wants me to feel that need to Him. That's how He's created me. And the human nature and human being is created with a need, with a reliance upon Allah, with a need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So we can't ignore our realities as well and the way Allah wants things to be, just because we believe Allah is the only one doing anything and fully in control, and therefore the one only worthy of worship. We still have to take the cause and effect in life, and whatever has been legislated for us, we take. And that never ever negates or that effect is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is the only true agent in things. Effective agent is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that answers the question of, why do you make dua and do durood sharif with it? How can durood sharif help you? How can dua help you? Nothing can help you if Allah doesn't want it to happen. So dua is legislated, durood sharif is legislated, and etc. Right? So prayer is legislated, and to do prayer in the night at tahajjud time is going to get you close to Allah, because that's legislated. That's the means what Allah has created and made for us to get close to Him. Fasting legislated. No, it's legislated, nafil and fard, for us to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the etiquettes of fasting and everything. These are all legislated. This is where Sharia comes into it. And it's slightly different to Aqidah, right? So Sharia means fiqh here, and Aqidah here means our beliefs. They don't contradict. It's just one is dealing with our hearts and what we believe, and one is dealing with our actions and what we do. And overlapping these is quite a big mistake for a lot of people, and they start misunderstanding the commands of Allah, or misunderstanding our beliefs in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the beliefs of a Muslim. Right? I'll give you an example. Somebody may do a dua and then say that Allah accept my dua by the virtue of the Prophet ﷺ, or by virtue and the merit of your beloved companions of the Prophet ﷺ, etc. They'll say that's shirk. You associate a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's shirk? You're using a means to Allah. You're mentioning the name of Allah. You believe that person has effect. Oh, wait a minute, I'm a Muslim. I don't believe anybody has an effect. What are you on about? So I mention the name of somebody because it's a means, it's legislated. Allah says, call upon Him by His names. Allah says, call upon Him through your pious actions. So I'm doing that. Right? If it's legislated and Allah's told us to do it, I'm never ever going to believe it. Anybody can help me apart from Allah. Right? Whether I call upon Allah by His names or by my actions, or I don't, who's going to benefit me or not benefit me? Allah. But He's asked me to. He said, call upon by His names. Ud'u lillahi falillahi al-asma'ul husna fad'uhu biha. Right, in the Quran. So I call upon His names, I call upon by His good actions, as the hadith teaches, and by others like the Prophet did and the companions did. But they never believed, or you're going to say the companions now believed that people had a power. Then they'll actually say a very dangerous and absolutely absurd statement that when somebody's alive, they can benefit you. Right, what's going on there? So you can ask them to make dua, or you can make dua through them and mention them. But once they're dead, they can't benefit you. So then you can't ask them to make dua for you, or they can't be a means of your dua being accepted. This is shirk, right? So the ones accusing of shirk have become the mushrik. Because what they're saying to you is, when someone is alive, they're a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they can help you. Right? Because when they're dead, they're not a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. They can't help you. That's what it means when they say they can help you. Look, when somebody's alive, my belief as a Muslim orthodoxy is, whether somebody's alive or dead, or an angel, or a simple person, nobody can help me or benefit me by effect, by agent, being an agent in that effect, illallah. That's meaning of la ilaha illallah. Right? There's no one worthy of worship except Allah, the one who has true full power except Allah. As for my making dua, and as for my making durood sharif, as for my eating food, as for my taking medicine, as for mentioning a pious person in my dua, these are all legislated means of doing things in life. So whether you want to do these or don't, it's your choice. Some might be wajib, so you've got to do them. Some might be mustahab, they're recommended. Some might be allowed, right? So you take the ones you want to do, but don't ever say or believe that things have an effect when they're alive and they don't have an effect when they're dead, right? If you mean the true, because we're talking about the true effect here. We're talking about the outward effect, the outward apparent things. Yeah, somebody can give you £10 right now when they're alive, but they can't give you £10 when they're dead. Right? True. That's an outward effect. But that £10 can't come to you or benefit you except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it to. And even that person's dead, if Allah wants to give you millions, He can give you millions without that person. So the actual nourishment or wealth coming to you is in the command and control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How He gives it to you is a cause and effect. And He's decided that. He has decided to live us, make us live in a cause and effect life. You can't escape from that. You could, it's not like you have to go through it. But it only happens for the pious or the prophets, right? Miracles. Maryam alayhi salam, what happened to her? She was sitting in a cloister, in a closed room, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and rizq was coming down upon her. She didn't go out and work. She didn't go and, ask somebody to bring it to her. It was just given, right? And Zakaria said, where did you get this from? I'm supposed to be looking after you. Anna laki hada. Where do you get this from, right? So the means can be taken away and Allah give you direct, but that happens to special people, right? It's in the Quran, it's in the Hadith, it's for the Prophet ﷺ, it's for the prophets and the pious, the awliya and so forth. So don't mix that up. So some people mix the idea of worshipping others to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with asbab. Taking medicine isn't shirk, right? It's just a sabab. right? It's a command of Allah actually to take cure and to find cure in things, right? Don't mix these things, do things up. You need to be careful, right? This is comes back to studying Aqidah and the basics of Hukum Aqli, Hukum Shar'i, Hukum Adi, and learning these points, okay? So the fourth category is the category of blind following, which obviously may be okay, because if blind follow a monotheist, it won't result in shirk. But it's talking here about those who blind follow and fall into shirk. It's a type of shirk, and that is for those who followed those on shirk. So those who came later in Jahiliyyah followed those before them. Inna wajadna alayhi aba'ana. We found our parents or our forefathers on this, right? And Allah says, what did they know? So what if they found people before you? The truth is the truth. It doesn't matter who was doing it before or not, right? That's not how the truth works. Sayyidina Ali said the truth is the truth, even if one person just follows it, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't need somebody, the majority, to follow it. The truth is the truth. And then we have, so that's straightforward. And then we have number 5, polytheism of causes, right? And again, this is dangerous. This is to attribute influence to customary causes, asbab adiyah, right? Fire burning, like the polytheism of the philosophers and the naturalists and those who follow them, okay? So they believe that things have interest. Not all of the philosophers. I don't think all the philosophers may have had the exact same opinion. They're very detailed in what they say and what they believe. But there is amongst the falasifa and amongst the Tabaiyin, the naturalists, those who believe in Mother Nature. So this idea of Mother Nature, by the way, is kufr. So Mother Nature is basically, we can't explain how things work in life. It's Mother Nature, it's nature of things, disposition of things, right? The inbuilt nature of things. No, there's a creator, right? There's a reason for everything, not just Mother Nature and that's it. We explained everything using 2 words to, wipe away a whole reality and discussion that is the core of our life and, the existence of this whole universe. Mother Nature, it doesn't work like that, right? People coin terms and they use them enough that it starts catching on and people start saying it, and famous people start saying it, influential people start saying it, and everybody else starts believing it. That's not how it works. The truth is the truth, regardless of who says it, how it's said or how it's not said, and falsehood is falsehood, regardless of who says it, how they say it, and how unconvincing or convincing it is, right? So the last one then is the and also I would add, this is where the scholars differed over the Qadariyah. So the Qadariyah also say your power creates. So they've given an effect to a customary cause, your power, your strength, your muscles, etc., your health. So they would come under category 5, but we're going to talk about category 5 at the moment. Category 6 is the polytheism of purposes being aghrad or goals, right? What's your goal in your worship? It says to worship for other than the sake of Allah. So to worship Allah for another, you might worship Allah but not for His sake, just to show people, show off. No problem whatsoever. To gain some kind of worldly gain or something like this. This is called shirkul aghrad, right? Shirk of, it's also called the lesser shirk, shirkul khafi, the hidden shirk, or shirkul asghar, the lesser shirk. So let's move on. So that's the 6 types of shirk mentioned and the rulings on these, right? So it says the ruling of the first 4 is disbelief by consensus. So whether you establish a second god or multiple gods, or whether you break God into parts and say this is part God, make a whole god, whether you say I'll worship so and so as a god, or worship to an object as part of worship of Allah, or getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or imitating that, those 4 are clearly, without a doubt, shirk and kufr by consensus, right? It says there by consensus. There's no discussion amongst Muslims. When we say consensus, we mean all Muslim scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, of Shia, of Mu'tazila, of Khawarij, of everything. Shirk is shirk, and the first 4 are pure shirk, and khalas, you can't be a Muslim if you're involved in any of those or believe any of those things. So there's a consensus of the whole ummah on the first 4. Okay, number 5. Number 6. Sorry, the ruling of the 6th. Let's read Arabic, because we didn't read the Arabic. So let's get the barakah of the Arabic. It says وحكم الأربعة الأول, the first 4 is الكفر بإجماع. حكم السادس, the 6th, المعصية من غير كفر بإجماع. وحكم الخامس التفصيل فيها, 5th has got a detail. فمن قال في الأسباب إنها تؤثر بطبعها فقد حكي الإجماع على كفره، ومن قال إنها تؤثر بقوة أودعها الله فيها فهو فاسق مبتدع وفي كفره قولان. So that says The ruling of the sixth is disobedience, not kufr by consensus. So shirk al-khafi is a internal characteristic, which means a lack of sincerity in your worship, worshiping others sake of Allah, having other purposes in your worship, showing off. It's a disease of the heart. It needs to be removed. It's called riya. Like, so you know, this riya, opposite of it's ikhlas. It's a spiritual disease and it's a sin. Therefore, it's not kufr though. The Prophet talked about this as well. It's in the hadith. It's in the Quran. It's in our discourse, in our books of Islamic spirituality. The fifth, which was giving effect to customary causes, so asbab adiyah, is detailed. It says here, the one who maintains that customary causes have an intrinsic effect, meaning in and of themselves, by their nature, then a consensus on the disbelief has been mentioned. So what that means, we said this earlier, that the fire burns, no separation of this. It burns because it is the power and the creator of burning. It is a connection that can never be broken. This sabab, which is what we would say is customary by repetition, experience, is in itself, within it, an independent intrinsic power, nature. Mother Nature again comes into it, that causes burning. That's disbelief, right? And it says that because it has been mentioned, meaning that there might have been other things mentioned, but it is disbelief. It comes again under the forms of shirk that we explained as well. So it's disbelief to believe that complete independent power is with things and not with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There also another way of giving power to asbab or customary causes, asbab adiyah, is the way the Mu'tazilites did in their understanding of creation of actions. So it says, as for the one who asserts that causes have an effect by a power deposited within them, so your hand has a power deposited within it to do things, right? A fire has a power deposit, isn't it, to make burning, to create burning, the effect of burning. But this is deposited by Allah, then he is a transgressor and innovator, and in his disbelief there are two opinions. Okay, I'm just going to read something to you by Shaykh Muhammad al-Hashimi, rahimahullah, is a great scholar, and also I'll read you something else as well. He says in his book Aqidat Ahl Sunnah, Miftah al-Jannah, the Key to Paradise commentary on the belief of Ahl Sunnah, Miftah al-Jannah Sharh Aqidat Ahl Sunnah, he says, the translation of pages 175, 176 of the Arabic, the correct position is to not incur upon them disbelief, as they do not make the creative power of the servant to do the action like the creative power of God Almighty. It's not the same. Okay, they don't make it equivalent. In that they made the servant dependent upon causes and means, as opposed to him Almighty. So you need causes and means, but he doesn't, right? The scholars of a certain part of the world called Transaxonia, Central Asia, however, considered them disbelievers and even considered the Magians in a better state. So the Qadariyya are known as Majus Hadi al-Ummah, because they do not associate with Allah except one partner, the dualism, right? Whereas they have associated, the Qadariyya, with Allah many partners. Everyone's a partner basically. They went to that, but the correct opinion is we don't say disbelief, because they haven't made the power of a human like the power of Allah. It's deposited, it's created, it's temporal, and it's used to create things, etc. But it's not like Allah's power. Okay. I want to read to you something else as well, just to kind of finish today's class off, and we'll stop here before we go on to the foundations of disbelief and innovation, an important section as well. And we'll send the PDF out of the next part as well, so you'll have the whole thing shortly with you, or by tomorrow inshallah. Imam Ghazali states in his Tahafut al-Falasifa, in his book The Incoherence of the Philosophers, the connection between what is customarily considered to be a cause, the sabab, fire burning, and what is habitually believed to be an effect, burning, is not necessary. It's unnecessary cause. That's what they call it. They call it unnecessary connection. Right? It's not a necessary connection. It's not logically necessary. According to us, Imam Ghazali, according to the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But with any two things where this is not that, and that is not this, and where neither the affirmation of the one entails the affirmation of the other, nor the negation of one entails the negation of the other, it is not a necessity of the existence of the one that the other should exist. It's talking about sabab. Basically, if this is that, if this is fire, that's burning, and if that's not there, there's no fire. All of this says it is not a necessity of the existence of the one of fire that the other should exist, the burning, or the burning that the fire has to exist. They can be independent of each other. And it is not a necessity of the non-existence of the other. So there's burning, that means so there's no burning, that means there has to be no fire. But there could be a fire without burning. So Imam is just wording it out again in detail. It is no necessity of the non-existence of the one that the other should not exist. For example, the quenching of thirst and drinking, satiety and eating, burning and contact with fire, light and the appearance of the sun, death and decapitation. So death, the appearance of the sun, you got light, decapitation, dead. These are causes that are everyday customary things, and so on, to include all that is observable among connected things in medicine. So everything, this rule goes out to everything medicine. So the medicine cures. Just because there's no medicine doesn't mean you can't get a cure. Just because medicine doesn't mean you're going to get a cure. Medicine, which is known to cure, often cures 90% of the time, 95%. Obviously, medicine is a bit less than normal things, like fire burning is 99.99 times of the time, whereas medicine may be less, right? Because how this Allah works in His creation. And the same could be like to medicine, astronomy, arts and crafts. Their connection is due to the prior decree of God, who creates them side by side, not to it being necessary in itself and being incapable of separation, right? It's capable of separation, and therefore to link it and make it as inseparable leads to kufr, right? So this is what Imam Ghazali had said in that book on the understanding of customary causes, or what we call sabab adi, the habitual kind of cause and effect we see in daily life. Thank you for being a part of today's class. Appreciate your joining us on these daily reminders and classes, and hopefully we'll move on to lesson 4 and details of what causes kufr and shirk, and it's interesting, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you want to log in to the question and chat, it is coming up as full for some. Every time I tried it doesn't come up as full, so I'm just like, what's going on? And then it did come up as full the last time I tried it, so I think it's hit and miss, right? So yeah, so now I've uploaded it, it's still not letting me in, so we'll have to change that chat box. But for those of you who did get in, and there were some comments yesterday, no questions, fantastic. You can email in the questions. You can actually click on the video and take it to YouTube and comment in YouTube if you wanted to. That's possible as well. But yeah, thank you for being a part of today's class. For those of you with us, those of you in the recording, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Send your questions in by email, that's the best thing to do. Jazakumullah khairan, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.